Alrighty, time once again for our Soundoff. It's midnight as I record this, so I want to get this done, get everything set up, and go to bed. I mean, shouldn't be up this late when I'm sick. But I did want to. This is a topic I kind of wanted to talk about today, and it's on the subject of character versus event-driven narratives. Um, because there's a difference. First off, any good story has to have both characters and events. So characters affect events, affect characters, who in turn affect the events, who in turn affect the characters, and it just keeps going back and forth. Well, I should go round and round like a circle. I have a desk in my way. So you kind of need to have both in there. And some people seem to think that if a story does not have huge character developments, that it's somehow not good. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And maybe this goes with the fact that the writings that I've done over the years have always been event driven more than character driven. But like I said, the characters have to be interesting, or otherwise you don't care about the events. I mean, there's been a lot of movies where you know nothing about the characters. You're lucky if you even know their names, and have such bland personalities that they're just aren't worth paying attention to. I'll give you a good example of a really great example of event-driven uh, narrative being done right, and it's kind of an odd choice, really. I'll admit that, but let's see something I forgot. Okay, but I've already reviewed the show on my website, so my readers are already aware of it. Some of them may already who have children may also already be aware of it. I know one of my blogging comrades mentioned that he just got shoes with these characters on it. I'm referring to Nickelodeon's Paw Patrol. Yes, a show designed to teach preschoolers teamwork and problem-solving skills is a great example of doing the event narrative correctly. And here's why. Each character on the show, first of all, Paw Patrol is a show about a bunch of talking puppies who use specially designed equipment to rescue people around Adventure Bay. People who tend to be get all sorts. Well, it's the same small group of people that always get in trouble, and then the Paw Patrol has to go save their sorry butts. It's always the same group. Every one of these characters, from the main group of puppies to the kid who leads them, because this is a kid show, you can get away with that in a kid show, to everybody in the cast that always seems to be the ones getting in trouble and have to be rescued. Each of them has their own distinct personality, and you can figure out if it's not a case of stereotypes. It's just everybody has their own personality that fits their role in the story or on the team or what they do for a living. And so it's kind of like this immediate snapshot of the character. Because in an event-driven story, especially if you're doing a short like the ones Hanna-Barbera worked on for years, because they always started out doing shorts, and you're doing a short subject, or if you're doing a mini comic, like the ones that just come with the Masters of the Universe figures, there's only so much time or space that you have to get people invested in the characters, so that when the events start happening, you actually care about them and want to see them overcome and save the day and everything. So you don't really have time for deep, rich character moments or flaws that need to be overcome on a large scale or anything like that. So each character somehow has just enough time to flesh out their personalities, how they fit into their roles in the team, and then give you an adventure where you want to see people get rescued, the heroes win, and well, it's not really that. Most of the time, they're not really a villain. Even the villains aren't really that much. I mean, it's a preschool show teaching you problem solving and teamwork skills. So you're not exactly going to get Doctor Doom in this. Um, but it is an example of how you do an event-driven narrative. If you want to look at good character-driven narratives, go to the old show Gem, because you can't go to the movie. The movie, as I wrote about last night, screwed that up royally. But the TV show is a very character-driven show, but it's one that also has very interesting events. You get interested in the characters' lives, and then you see these events, and you want to see the hero succeed. And somehow there's been this thinking that the event-driven narrative is not as interesting as the character-driven. I don't think that's true. I kind of think of the character-driven narrative as when you're in the mood for something really deep and meaningful, and kind of like steak, something deep and juicy and put effort into. Um, and the event-driven narrative is a hamburger. Sometimes you're just in the mood for something relaxing and fun, and not there's something that your brain has already been tasked for your work day, your school day, and you just want to lie there and not do much of anything and not really think about much of anything because your brain needs a rest. And that's where the comfort food of the event narrative is, because you get a brief moment of who the characters are, whether or not you're interested in them, and then you watch them go to work. Whether it's a 5 minute short or 2 half-hour shorts and a half hour, 2 shorts and a half-hour episode, or 3 shorts and a half-hour episode, however it works. The the event-driven narrative is a nice way to relax and just enjoy a good, fun story. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's what I've always been drawn to, because I've always come home from school in a bad mood, everything going wrong, got picked on, or anything else that went wrong in my life. So I would just sit back and relax and watch something that's just a fun adventure story. And then sometimes I'm in the mood for something a little more serious. Sometimes you want Super Friends, sometimes you want Justice League, sometimes you want GoBots, sometimes you want Transformers. I don't, it's what are you in the mood to watch or listen to, if it's music or read that day, and that's what you're going to pay attention to. So don't be afraid to do something that's not necessarily this big, huge character piece about how about every little nook and cranny of a personality character study. You don't necessarily need to do that. Sometimes you just want a nice, fun story, and there's nothing wrong with just writing those from now and then. That's what I kind of prefer writing, but there are some stories that I have in my head that may not be more character driven, but you need characters and events together in order to make a good story. I remember seeing this movie on IFC, I think, and it was boring as heck. It was just a bunch of people standing around talking like like when you go to a party and talk to your family and friends, and you hear about their day and their life and what happened to them and everything. Except you care about what happened in that conversation because they are your family, they are your friends, they are people that you love and care about. In this movie, I knew who none of these people were. I had no reason to care. It wasn't a case of somebody telling a story and then you go to a flashback where you see that story happen. It's just them standing there talking. It was boring. It was all character, no events. Meanwhile, you can't have a story that's all events, no character. You need both character and events, but it's a point of what's driving the narrative, the character or the event. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the character-driven narrative, and there's nothing wrong with the event-driven narrative. Sometimes you're in the mood for one, sometimes you're in the mood for the other. I know what I prefer writing, and I know what I prefer reading in whatever mood I'm in at the time. So don't be afraid of event narratives, but don't forget that characters need to play a good part in it, and vice versa. If you write a character event, make sure you're writing something that's interesting for the characters to do, or we're not going to care. Doesn't matter what you tell about the character. If nothing's happening, the story is boring, and nobody's going to care about the characters. And nobody's going to care about the events if the characters are bland and empty. In other words, if you're going to write an event-driven story, make sure your characters are more interesting than a preschool show. Because the preschool show has already shown how to do it right. That happens. But that's the art sound off for today. Check out everybody else doing some really great discussions about creating and their workday and everything else. At the Twitter hashtag ArtSoundoff or the Twitter account ArtSoundoff, or by going to leanhort.com/ArtSoundoff. And don't forget to check out my work at bwspotlight.com, because I'll have, I wrote an initial article last night, I'll have another one tonight. And meanwhile, I'm going to post this all up and then get back to being sick by going to sleep and sleeping off as much of this cold as I can. Till then, happy creating.